Welcome back to another episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother? In this alternate Naruto universe, one small twist changes everything. What if Naruto wasn't alone? What if he grew up with someone stronger, smarter, and born to rewrite destiny itself? Today, we dive deeper into the story of Kaito Uzumaki, Naruto's powerful older brother whose existence shakes the entire Shinobi world. New alliances form, new enemies rise, and the future of Konoha may never be the same again. So sit back, relax, and get ready, because this episode is about to change everything. Kaito tilted his head slightly as he listened, his brows pulling together in thought. Shikaku's voice was as calm and lazy as ever, but there was something steady beneath it, an unspoken respect. "There's a reason," Shikaku repeated, hands slipping into his pockets as the caravan creaked along the road, "why no village has ever successfully invaded the land of iron. The samurai may not have chakra-based techniques like us, but they compensate in other ways." Hotaru leaned a bit closer, her Byakugan still dormant but her curiosity sharp. "What ways, sensei?" Shikaku glanced at her, then at the distant mountains barely visible beyond the trees. "Discipline," he said. "Unity. Precision. Their swordsmanship is sharp enough that even a skilled shinobi hesitates. Their ranks are tightly coordinated. Their armor is chakra-enhanced and their katanas are forged with alloys specifically designed to cut through chakra-based defenses. And above all," he paused, flicking his eyes toward the path ahead, "their numbers." Itachi absorbed every word silently, the faintest furrow forming between his brows. "So they fight as a unit." "Exactly," Shikaku replied. "A shinobi excels in versatility. A samurai excels in formation. They don't rely on tricks. They rely on pure mastery. One samurai alone may fall to a high-ranking shinobi, but a battalion of samurai? Even a jonin thinks twice." Kaito felt the weight of that settle inside him. "Stronger together," he murmured under his breath, remembering Shikaku's first lesson to their team: teamwork before ego, coordination before glory. It made more sense now. Shikaku didn't look back, but Kaito caught the slight upward curl at the corner of his beard, like he'd heard that quiet thought. "Remember this," Shikaku added. "Ninja can learn a lot from samurai. Especially you three." Hotaru blinked. "Us." "You're young," Shikaku explained, "but you understand formation. You adapt quickly. And you don't get blinded by your own power, yet." His gaze flicked particularly toward Kaito at that last word. "Don't lose those traits." Kaito felt the subtle jab but didn't argue. Instead, he looked down at his hands, bandaged still from Rasengan training, and exhaled softly. "We won't, sensei." Ahead of them, the caravan guards shifted uneasily as a cold breeze rolled down from the foothills. The path gradually narrowed, flanked by thick rows of cedar trees whose branches swayed ominously above. Birds fell silent as if sensing the approach of snow. Hotaru lifted Naruto's charm from her pouch. Kushina had slipped it into Kaito's lunch pack before they left. She brushed it with her thumb and whispered, "I'm a little nervous, but also excited." Kaito smiled faintly. "Me too. It's our first mission outside the village walls. Kind of surreal, huh?" Itachi nodded. "Yes, but also grounding. This is what being a shinobi is." The road winded deeper into the forest, shadows growing taller, the wind colder. A thin shiver worked its way down Kaito's spine, not fear, but anticipation. Somewhere far behind them, the clone he'd left with his mother fed Naruto mashed fruit while Kushina hummed gently. The clone felt calm, steady, like an anchor tied to home. Kaito carried that steadiness with him now. The trees parted at last, revealing an old stone marker etched with ancient characters. Shikaku slowed his pace and lifted his chin toward it. "That's the halfway point," he said. "2 more days and we'll reach the border crossing into the land of iron." Hotaru exhaled a small puff of white breath. It was noticeably colder now. "Sensei, are we likely to encounter enemies?" Shikaku shrugged lazily. "Bandits, rogue shinobi, wild animals, maybe. The world is unpredictable." His eyes sharpened. But you three have already shown you're capable. Just stay alert. Kaito exchanged a look with Itachi and Hotaru. Their first steps beyond the safety of Konoha, and the real world already loomed ahead with mystery and danger. Still, something warm pulsed in Kaito's chest. "We'll handle it," he said firmly. Shikaku didn't smile, but his gaze softened just a bit, barely noticeable unless you knew how to read him. "Good," he murmured. "Because the land of iron is only the beginning." The caravan pressed onward through the narrowing forest path, and Team 11 continued forward, 3 young shinobi stepping quietly toward their first true mission, unaware of how profoundly this journey would shape them in the days to come. Snow drifted quietly across the land of iron, melting as it hit the warm lantern posts scattered along the main street. The inn they stayed at was simple, wooden floors polished smooth by years of travelers, a faint scent of cedar lingering in the air, but to Team 11, exhausted and sore, it felt like heaven. Inside, the heat embraced them instantly. Kaito slipped off his sandals and exhaled slowly, finally letting his guard drop. Hotaru followed behind him, still rubbing the faint bruise on her arm, while Itachi closed the door quietly, as if mindful not to disturb the silence of the samurai stronghold. Shikaku raised an eyebrow at the 3 of them, his hands tucked deep into his pockets. "What a troublesome day," he muttered, though his tone held a note of relief. "But you handled yourselves better than expected." "Not bad." Kaito flopped onto one of the cushions around the low table, stretching his sore arms with a wince. His chakra was still recovering from sealing Ujito, no small feat for someone his age. A Jinchuriki, and at 7 years old, I actually sealed her chakra. He couldn't decide if he should be proud or quietly horrified. Hotaru sat down beside him, neatly folding her legs under her. "We should report everything to the Hokage when we return," she said softly. "Attacking leaf shinobi inside the land of iron, even genin." Itachi nodded in agreement. "The Cloud Village will deny responsibility, as always." Kaito scoffed. "Let them. They're lucky we didn't kill them." Shikaku shot him a flat look. "And that's exactly why you didn't. Killing foreign shinobi on someone else's territory is more than troublesome. It's an international crisis." He paused, letting the weight of the words settle over them. "You did the right thing, Kaito." Kaito blinked, surprised at the rare praise. Shikaku didn't hand those out recklessly. The door slid open again as an inn attendant brought in 4 steaming bowls of miso soup and a tray of rice with pickled vegetables. As they began to eat, Shikaku quietly watched his team, analyzing their movements the way a strategist dissects a battlefield. After a moment, he broke the silence. "You 3 showed excellent coordination today." Kaito nearly dropped his chopsticks. Itachi tilted his head slightly, listening carefully. Hotaru's cheeks turned faintly pink. Shikaku continued, his voice low and even. "Your reactions were fast. Your teamwork was clean. And despite the situation, you kept your heads." He took a sip of his soup. "You're starting to look like a real squad." Kaito couldn't hide his grin. "We are a real squad, sensei." Don't get cocky." But there was a faint upward tug at the corner of Shikaku's lips. Itachi finished his meal first, setting down his bowl with precise movements. "Sensei, what will happen now with the Cloud Genin?" "Nothing," Shikaku replied immediately. "The land of iron is neutral. Their laws forbid shinobi skirmishes on their soil. Since you didn't kill anyone, the samurai won't escalate it. And neither will the Hokage." He leaned back, closing his eyes lazily. "Cloud, however, will definitely get chewed out by Mifune." Kaito snickered. He could already imagine Ujito waking up to her sensei and Mifune staring her down in disappointment. Hotaru rested her hands in her lap, her expression thoughtful. "Sensei, if we hadn't been there, Mr. Kazuma would have died." Shikaku opened one eye. "Yes." "So, was today still considered a C rank?" she asked. "Technically." Shikaku shrugged. "But based on the threat level," he glanced at Kaito. "Fighting a Jinchuriki certainly qualifies as A rank." Kaito coughed, trying to hide his nervous laugh. Well, she was holding back. Still an A rank. Shikaku closed both eyes again. Please try not to fight any more Jinchuriki until you're at least 12. Hotaru giggled softly. Even Itachi allowed a tiny exhale of amusement. Kaito pouted. It's not like I asked her to attack. Troublesome, Shikaku muttered again, rubbing his forehead. The warmth of the room seeped into their bones as night deepened. The wind outside howled softly through the frozen valleys, but inside the inn, the four of them felt, for the first time in days, safe. Kaito leaned back, letting his gaze drift toward the flickering lantern. Mom's probably worrying right now. Naruto too. He sighed softly. Hotaru noticed. Kaito-kun. He waved her off with a small smile. It's nothing. Just thinking about home. Itachi shifted closer, his quiet voice grounding. We'll be back soon. Kaito nodded. Shikaku spoke one final time before drifting into a half-sleep. Rest up. Tomorrow morning, we check in with Mifune, deliver the Hokage scroll, and then escort our client back home. Kaito lay down beside his pack, exhaustion finally pulling at him. Hotaru leaned against the wall, closing her eyes peacefully. Itachi sat with perfect posture even as he drifted off, his breathing steady. And as the snow continued to fall outside, covering the land of iron in cold white silence, Team 11 slept, stronger than they were yesterday, and closer than ever before. Their journey had only just begun. A small smile curved on Hotaru's lips as she whispered, I'm fine, just a few scratches. Itachi stepped beside her, his Sharingan fading back to dark onyx as he checked her arm with quiet concern. From a short distance away, Shikaku watched the three of them, calculating, evaluating, and after one long exhale, he trudged toward them. All good? He asked lazily, though his sharp eyes swept over each of them with silent precision. All three nodded. Shikaku pinched the bridge of his nose. Troublesome. With that, he motioned for them to follow. Let's go. We'll rest in the city for the night. They obeyed, weary and battered but alive, and that was enough. Dawn broke cold and pale over the land of iron, the snow-tipped mountains glowing beneath the early sunlight. Team 11 stood at the towering city gates, their breath misting in the morning air. Shikaku stood at the head of the formation, arms crossed inside his coat sleeves. All right, team, he called, voice low yet steady, we are moving out. Kaito adjusted Hotaru more securely on his back. She had protested earlier, but the wound in her arm made long-distance travel difficult. Behind them, Itachi leapt into the trees with soundless grace, shadowing their movements effortlessly. As they moved, Kaito's attention drifted to the girl clinging lightly to his shoulders. You're quiet, he said softly. What's wrong, Hotaru-chan? She blinked and seemed to awaken from her thoughts. Sorry. I was just thinking. I still don't understand why they attacked Mr. Kazuma if we were their target. Itachi landed beside them, running with smooth precision. I was wondering about that as well. Their actions made no tactical sense. Kaito frowned deeply. I have a theory, not confirmed, but close enough. Shikaku, hearing this from a short distance ahead, slowed down. Let's hear it, Kaito. Taking a breath, Kaito replied, it was for political tension. If a client died under our protection, especially here, it would damage ties with the land of iron. Maybe even make them distrust Konoha. Shikaku hummed. Close. No, actually, perfectly on point. It would paint the leaf as unreliable. Cloud has always wanted excuses to weaken us. His tone grew heavier. This was a move on the political board, not the battlefield. Hotaru's eyes widened slightly, realization settling in. Itachi simply nodded, understanding all too well the quiet wars fought between villages. 2 days later, after pushing themselves at near jonin speed, Team 11 passed through the familiar gates of Konohagakure. Relief washed over them like warm sunlight. At the guard post, Shikaku checked them in, the guards shooting uneasy glances between them. Tension from the Orochimaru incident was still fresh. Once cleared, Shikaku turned to the team. "We are going straight to the hospital," he said, tone final. "But sensei, I'm fine." Hotaru protested, cheeks puffing indignantly. Kaito shook his head firmly. "No. We are getting you checked. I can heal, but I'm not a medical nin." Hotaru deflated. "Oh fine." Just then, an ANBU materialized before Shikaku, kneeling. "Lord Shikaku. The Hokage requests your presence immediately." Shikaku's eyes narrowed. "What happened?" "Orochimaru-sama," the ANBU answered, voice tight, "has fled the village. Illegal experiments on orphans were discovered. He is now classified S-rank." The weight of the words settled heavily. They walked to the Hokage building together, Naruto tucked asleep against Kushina's chest, a tiny, trusting weight that steadied Kaito like nothing else. Inside, the meeting room smelled of incense and old paper. Hiruzen greeted them with eyes softened by grief and resolve. Danzo sat like a blade in a velvet sheath, expression flat as ever. Koharu and Homura watched with the cautious concern of those who had known too many funerals. Fugaku was absent, ostensibly on patrol, though his shadow lingered in the room like a promise of questions yet to be asked. "You wish to see me?" Kushina asked, steady despite the knot in her stomach. Hiruzen folded his hands. "We discussed this briefly at the council. Your son's performance, Kaito's, was mentioned by the academy staff. The instructors feel he, along with Itachi and Hotaru, demonstrate skill beyond their years." He looked down at Kaito with a softness he reserved for moments when the world needed a parent more than a leader. "I don't make this decision lightly, Kushina. I know what you lost. I know what you stand to lose." Danzo spoke before Hiruzen could finish. "We cannot afford sentiment to dictate policy. If these children are to graduate early, they must be an asset to the village, not liabilities." He steepled his fingers. "I propose formal testing, supervised by Jonin, and immediate placement into active teams. We must also ensure Kaito's abilities are monitored. The Uzumaki bloodline is potent." Kushina's hand tightened unconsciously around Naruto. "He's a child," she said, the edges of steel showing. "He nearly died carrying his duty. He doesn't need to be used as a tool. He needs guidance." Hiruzen held up a palm. "Both are true. Which is why I propose a compromise. We will allow early graduation, conditional. They will undergo an accelerated exam administered by a panel of Jonin. Should they pass, they will graduate and be placed under the tutelage of a chosen instructor for a probationary period. They will not be immediately thrust into dangerous missions. They will be trained, supervised, and their assignments will be carefully controlled." Danzo's mouth tightened, but he said nothing. Kaito chuckled awkwardly. "It's not like I wanted to." Kushina groaned and slapped her forehead. "Shikaku, you absolute lazy, ua." But by the time he finished the story, she was smiling proudly, even if her heart was ready to explode. That night, after dinner and warm baths, Kaito collapsed onto his bed. The blankets felt softer, the room warmer, and the ceiling more comforting than ever. And as he stared up, a dangerous glint burned in his eyes. Orochimaru is gone. That meant only one thing. Danzo is next. Kaito smirked, dark and satisfied. "Oh, Danzo," he whispered into the darkness, grin widening. "You're going to regret everything." He closed his eyes. Sleep took him quickly, and his mind burned with the promise of revenge. Though her body felt impossibly heavy, drained, hollow, fragile, she held Kaito and Naruto as though they were her lifelines. Tears clung to her lashes, her vision blurring as she looked at them. "Kaito. Naruto," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Stay with me, okay? Mommy's right here." Kaito remained unconscious beside her, his head resting in her lap. Even through her exhaustion, Kushina's heart twisted painfully as she took in the state of her eldest son. His wrist, bent unnaturally. His forehead, bruised and blooded. His little body, limp, fragile, struggling. "Kaito-kun," she cried softly, brushing his red hair with weak fingertips. "You were so brave, too brave, why no?" Her voice wavered, tears spilling freely now. Kaito Uzumaki moved through it all like a thought on legs, red hair bright against the morning, his steps pulling him to a specific place. It had been a week since Orochimaru fled and the village's nerves were raw. Kaito's first stop was the Konoha Memorial. He found Kakashi there, sole figure bowed in quiet, head tilted over Minato's stone. Kaito laid a single flower with reverence, then stood beside the white-haired jonin in companionable silence. Memories pressed soft and sharp against his ribs. Minato's absence was a hollow that never quite left. Finally, he cleared his throat. "It's been a while, Kakashi." Kakashi's visible eye lifted. "It has." Despite the brief celebrations that followed Minato's legendary triumph against the Hidden Stone, the village was still caught in the grinding gears of the Third Great Shinobi War. But for me, every passing day felt like watching a timer countdown. A countdown to the night my parents were destined to die. The ceasefire with the Hidden Stone brought a measure of relief, but also political turmoil. Hiruzen's refusal to demand reparations enraged many in the upper ranks. Kakashi pushed Kaito hard. The boy held his ground and then bowed out, panting and grinning. Kakashi left acknowledging what Kaito already felt. He was getting stronger. When Kakashi was gone, Kaito set the next phase of his plan in motion. He formed 20 shadow clones and sent them scattering through the village disguised by transformation jutsu. The real Kaito went home to spend an easy day with Kushina and baby Naruto while the copies worked the streets. One clone melted into a market alley, walked up to a stall, and started a small, poisonous conversation. He leaned in, acted shocked, and whispered one juicy, awful rumor: Danzo-sama was involved with Orochimaru. Eyes widened. Breath caught. The impact sent Obito crashing through a boulder, mask cracking even further. He staggered, coughing. TCH, troublesome Hokage. Minato didn't give him time to recover. Flying Raijin, level 2. A golden flash. A kunai whistling through the air. A teleportation. A violent clash. A gasp. A tearing sound. Minato severed the control over the Nine Tails. The genjutsu shattered. Obito recoiled in shock as the massive beast roared, its eyes clearing momentarily. Before Obito could reassert control, Minato hurled another kunai. Straight through the Kamui portal. Marking the edge of Obito's personal dimension. Kushina wept quietly in the corridor when she read it, Naruto cooing in her arms. She let Kaito see, let him see her grief and her pride braided together. "You'll be careful," she told him in a voice so small it might have been a thought. "I will," Kaito answered. "I'll come back. I promise." He kept that promise in the smallest of ways. He made shadow clones tidy the house before school. He doubled his water training to make time for Kakashi's drills. He walked to the Hyuga compound to meet Hotaru for sunrise practice and stayed late working on seal diagrams by lamplight. Every joke, every small victory, every tear he didn't show was a brick laid in a wall meant to keep the people he loved safe. Kushina's eyes flickered to her son, uncertainty knitting her brows. "It can't be right," she murmured, voice low and brittle with hope. Kaito's reply came quick, practical, mercilessly honest. "But the village already found out you were a Jinchuriki through rumors, Mom." He watched her face as the words landed. For a long heartbeat Kushina chewed her lip, the lie she wanted to tell and the truth she feared standing opposite each other. She did not want to believe it, and yet the thought had a terrible, sensible weight. She let the silence sit between them. Dawn found the training ground bright and sharp. Kaito Uzumaki, blindfolded, red hair aflare in the morning, darted through a rain of rubber balls hurled by his clones. Each impact rang in the quiet like a bell. For another hour he danced, breathed, bled sweat, until a stray pebble betrayed him. He slipped and went down under a barrage of rubber. "Stop! Stop!" he barked, ripping the blindfold off in a flurry of fury. The clones froze, and then erupted into laughter, the sound grating on his nerves. "You said don't go easy on me, boss," one of them jeered, smug as a mirror. Kaito rolled to his feet, grumpy and raw. Months had passed since their C-rank run, and since he'd started the rumor wheels about Danzo. The Hokage had tried to smother the whispers, but the ember had already caught, everyone had stoked it, and for now the village was ablaze with gossip. With one final look, a look heavy with love, fear, and determination, Minato activated the flying Raijin. In a flare of golden light, he vanished, leaving behind a swirl of displaced air and the faint echo of a man racing against fate itself. Kushina tightened her trembling arms around her sons, one sleeping, one still unconscious, and fought back the storm of emotions ravaging her heart. Fear, exhaustion, pain, but above all, hope. Hope that Minato would return. Hope that her children would live to see tomorrow. He hopped down beside the guards, breath slowing. "Tell Hotaru we've got a mission," he said, and 5 minutes later she slipped from the compound, ponytail bright and curious. "Another mission, Kaito-kun?" she asked. "Hi. Shikaku called 15 minutes ago. We need to get Itachi." They found Itachi by the pond, sharing dango with Izumi, tranquil as a painted scene. Kaito waved. "Yo, Itachi. Izumi." "It's been a while," Izumi offered, smiling. Itachi rose. "I'll see you later." Kaito skirted apologies and straight to business. "Sensei summoned us. We meet at the gate." They moved like a small, practiced current toward the front wide gate. "That's how you'll keep us safe." The next morning dawned grey and watchful. Kaito rose with it, quick, efficient. He trained with the rest of the morning, shadow clone drills, chakra control, a short spar with Hotaru that left both of them laughing and coughing. Yet underneath the routine throbbed the memory of the street yesterday, the sneers, and the mirrors of suspicion in other people's faces. It soured him. He had thought grief would make the village kinder, but it had only sharpened old edges. Midday, while Kushina laid Naruto down for a nap and Kakashi dozed in a chair like a wary guardian, an unmarked messenger arrived at the Uzumaki door. Nekoba's house smelled of pipe smoke and cats. The old woman sat on a cushion, cats crawling in her lap like living cushions. She squinted at Itachi. "How's the kunai?" "It was perfect," Itachi replied politely. Nekoba grunted and handed Shikaku a photo. "This is your target." Hotaru peered at the small picture. "A cat." Her voice held real confusion. Why hire Shinobi for a cat? Nekoba snuffed smoke and went serious. "Not a normal cat. A ninja cat. Den of felines, dangerous." Shikaku slid cat ears to each of them with a dry eyebrow. "They'll help you. Later. For now, find the cat." Kaito felt ridiculous in the ears but put them on anyway. Hotaru giggled and produced a small camera. "You look cute, Kaito-kun." In the heart of Konoha, the air twisted unnaturally. A swirling vortex tore open space itself. From it stepped the masked man. He raised his left hand. Summoning jutsu. A thunderous plume of smoke exploded outward. Shockwaves rippled through the district. Civilians stumbled back, startled, confused. As the smoke cleared, the nine-tailed fox stood revealed. Monstrous. Terrifying. Eyes blazing with malice. A scream tore through the night. Panic erupted instantly. "Nine tails. Run." The masked man stood atop its head, his voice booming with malice. "Go, Nine Tails." With a roar that shook the very bones of the village, the bijou charged. Buildings crumpled like paper beneath swipes of its tails. Flames burst across rooftops. The better you sense them, the easier it will be to control your chakra later. Kushina had taught me this in theory, but Minato's guiding chakra made it feel real, tangible. Next came physical drills. Minato had me run laps around the training ground, climb low branches, jump between stumps, and dodge padded strikes. It was basic, but it was more intense than anything I had done before. By the time I finished my third lap, sweat rolled down my forehead. "You're doing great," Minato encouraged. "Let's take a small break." I nodded, chest rising and falling quickly, but determination burning equally bright. Because I wasn't just running, I was building the foundation for the future I desperately needed to change. We will also increase patrols during the night. You are not alone. Kushina inclined her head, and for the first time in a long while something like relief passed over her face. Thank you. That evening, under a crescent moon, Kaito met with Kakashi at the training ground. The air smelled of crushed grass and the cool edges of coming rain. Kakashi had the list Hiruzen authorized, Jounin guards, ANBU in rotation, and Danzo's men, an arrangement that made Kaito's jaw clench but also gave a structure he could exploit. You're not allowed to go solo on missions, Kakashi said, matter of fact. And you'll not shadow any ANBU detail. Minato slammed both palms forward. A massive space airtime seal spread like a net. The bijou bomb vanished. A massive explosion lit the night sky, safely outside the village. Minato sensed him instantly. He spun. And his kunai passed straight through the masked man. The masked man grabbed Minato's wrist. I'm your opponent. And it's over. A vortex dragged Minato's body toward it. But Minato vanished in a bright flare. The masked man clicked his tongue. He teleported away. Next time, I'll catch him the instant I touch him. Minato's words struck like a hammer blow, final and absolute. Don't abuse it. Kaito accepted it like a sacred thing. Thanks. Later that night, Kaito walked the perimeter himself once, more out of habit than need. He dispelled one clone in the shadow of the shed, folded the memory of its patrol back into his mind, and sat on the low stone wall watching the village breathe. He let himself listen, a gift he'd learned from Kakashi. Footsteps, distant river, the soft breathing of a child somewhere in the compound, a dog's bark, the rustle of leaves. There, faint, like a footprint at the edge of rain, someone moved through the shadow line beyond the garden. It was subtle, not the clumsy tread of a drunk or the gleeful scamper of teenagers. It was a controlled approach, professional. Kaito stood, muscles coiled. He didn't move himself. He let the presence come closer and instead unclipped the small Hiraishin medallion Minato had given him long ago. It was a talisman now, nothing more, but he'd hidden a thin sealing tag inside its rim, a trick Minato had shown him years ago in passing. He thought of the masked man, of Obito, and Zetsu whispered like curses, of Danzo's offer. The figure paused at the edge of the lantern light. A whisper of displaced grass, then a soft, familiar chuckle. You've been busy, Kaito Uzumaki, a voice said from the hedge. Training, clones, your mother looks well. Is the baby sleeping? Kaito's heart was a drum. He stepped into the light, still young, still raw, but not naive. Ichiraku smelled like comfort and grease and sunlight. Tucci greeted them like family. Kaito-kun. Usual. Hi. Miso ramen, extra chashu. And gyoza. Itachi took shoyu. Hotaru chose miso tonkotsu. Laughter and slurps and the small clatter of chopsticks filled the stall. Kaito thought of Kushina, of ramen tradition and warmth, and felt a warm place settle behind his ribs. After bowls were emptied and shoulders loosened, Kaito and Hotaru walked Itachi home, then parted at the Hyuga gates. Kaito cut through the rooftops, heart light, and landed at the Uzumaki house with a proud, loud, "Mom, I'm back." Inside, chaos reigned in the best way, 2-year-old Naruto shrieking, a towel in Kushina's hands, laughter spilling like warm tea. Minato appeared atop a ruined rooftop, his breath catching for a moment as he took in the sight. Homes crushed, flames licking the horizon, Shinobi scattered like insects against the overwhelming force of the tailed beast. He clenched his fists, jaw tight. I have to end this, now. High above on a cratered rooftop, Hiruzen Sarutobi leapt backward as the Ninetail's claws crashed down where he had stood moments before. Even with all his years of experience, even with Enma, the adamantine staff, summoned at his side, the sheer power of the beast forced him on the defensive. Damn it. Minato, hurry, he muttered under his breath. As if answering his call, a streak of yellow light tore through the battlefield. Shisui gave Kaito a quick, conspiratorial grin. Also, stop beating up random chunin in the street. It's messy. Let them learn lessons from embarrassment instead. He winked and melted back into the night as deftly as he'd come. Kaito watched him go, and the promise he'd muttered to the moon earlier took firmer shape in his heart. He would be better, smarter. And when the day came that Danzo moved his paw too close, Kaito would be ready. But tonight, there were other things: a small boy's sleeping breath inside the house, Kushina humming as she mended a frayed sleeve, Kakashi's quiet counsel in his pouch, and those were enough to anchor him for the moment. Evacuate the civilians, suppress the fires, and keep casualties minimal. Hiruzen nodded, seeing the fire in Minato's eyes. And you? I'm ending this, Minato said, lifting a marked kunai. Another thunderous roar shook the earth as the Nine Tails began gathering chakra, forming another tailed beast bomb. Minato narrowed his eyes. I'll stop him here. No matter what. Hiruzen gave him a long, searching look, the look only a mentor could give his successor. Then he steeled his expression. Very well. Hokage. Do what only you can do. Minato vanished. At the same moment, deep within the safe house, Kushina clung weakly to Naruto with one arm, her other arm curled protectively around Kaito's limp body. Kaito tapped a rough sketch and explained, outlining hand seals, a small channel point behind the ear and the earring's conductive ring. Kushina listened intently, occasionally nodding and asking the kind of pointed questions that turned a childish scheme into a working fuinjutsu. That, she murmured at last, is clever. Disrupting chakra flow in reaction to an external pattern is risky. You could trap yourself if the timing's wrong. But as a one-shot breaker, it'll work. You'll need a failsafe, something that prevents the seal from collapsing your own flow if it misfires. Kaito's grin widened. That's why I put the overflow thread in the metal. It dumps excess to the earlobe seal and dissipates it. The beast roared in fury, chakra swirling violently around its jaws. Minato pressed his palm against the creature's skull. Contract seal. A massive seal matrix erupted beneath him, chaining the Nine-Tails form with brilliant tendrils of chakra. The rampaging beast staggered, its roar breaking into a howl as the masked man's control finally dissolved completely. The crimson beast thrashed wildly, but now it wasn't being controlled. Now it was pure rage. And pure power. Minato immediately teleported away as one of the massive tails swung toward him, smashing through a dozen buildings at once. Just move. I took a deep breath. My body tensed with anticipation. Ready. Hi. The first pebble flew toward me. I dodged easily. Then another. And another. They gradually became faster. Sharper. Higher. Soon, Minato's arm blurred. He wasn't throwing pebbles anymore. He was throwing precision tests. Good, he murmured. Your eyes are following well. I pivoted left, then ducked right, flipping over a low pebble that zipped just inches above the ground. My heart pounded with excitement. This is fun. I exclaimed between breaths. Minato chuckled. You sound just like Kushina. The speed increased again. Rin gasped from behind. Kakashi's visible eye sharpened in interest. Even Obito stopped mid-complaint to stare. Don't you dare make Naruto carry this burden alone. Don't you dare leave our boys without their father. Minato paused mid-gesture, the spectral Shinigami looming behind him like a giant shadow only he could see. Its hollow eyes glowed, its claws already reaching to claim its sacrifice. Even Kushina, drained and barely conscious, could feel the suffocating pressure of death crowding around Minato. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a moment, the facade of the Hokage slipped away. He was just Minato. Her Minato. A husband. A father. A man torn between duty and love. Kushina, he whispered, his voice breaking for the first time. If I don't, the village falls. And if the village falls, our children, they fall with it. Tears streamed down Kushina's cheeks, hot against her cooling skin. But Minato, can't we find another way? Why must you be the one to die? Minato knelt before her, gently brushing a strand of red hair away from her tear-streaked face. Because, he said softly, If someone must pay the price, it should be me. Outside the barrier, Hiruzen slammed his fists against the dome again, desperation twisting his features. Minato. Kushina. Stop. Don't do this, he shouted hoarsely. But the barrier, woven from Kushina's dying chakra, didn't budge an inch. Its fiery edges only flared brighter with each attempt. Itachi's voice, soft and almost apologetic, called Kaito's name as the world pressed in. Kaito's stomach dropped. The first fingertip reached for the anchor inside his ear, felt the microseal respond and spill. The genjutsu's threads brushed his mind, searching for purchase, and found the breaker already halfway engaged. The earring's little metal ring sang, a high whisper in his skull, and the chakra pattern around his nerves shattered the illusion's weave. Itachi's expression flickered with surprise. The Sharingan's circles tightened. The training ground snapped back into place. Leaves stopped their pretend whispering. For a heartbeat none of them moved. He stood, facing the towering Ninetails thrashing against her chains, its eyes burning with primal hatred. The spectral Shinigami behind him raised its arms slowly, sensing the nearing sacrifice. I'm sorry, Kushina, Minato whispered without turning back. But our children, they deserve tomorrow. Summoning every last ounce of chakra left within him, Minato's hands flashed through the final sequence of the dead demon consuming seal. Behind him, the Shinigami opened its skeletal jaws. Kushina screamed, the sound raw and broken. Minato. But her voice could not reach him in time. The Shinigami plunged its hand forward, straight into Minato's chest. The world seemed to hold its breath. Minato's body jerked, but he didn't collapse. At the Uzumaki house, Kushina hugged Kaito as he returned, pride and worry braided in her arms. You tested it? She asked, voice soft. Passed, he said. Itachi tried. Kaito grinned. He was surprised. She laughed, a sound that shivered the last of the day's gloom away for a moment. Good. Be careful. The village still watches us like we are fragile glass. Make your glass stronger. That night, as everyone drifted to sleep and the moon swept silver across the roof, Kaito sat by Naruto's crib, the earring in his palm. He thought of Danzo's offer, Shisue's quiet warning, Itachi's fleeting smile. There were men with agendas now circling closer than before, and he had made himself a small reinforcement in the fight. But seals were only tools. The real protection would come from people who kept their promises. He slid the earring on, tucked a sketch of his next seal under his pillow, and placed 2 clones at their usual posts. One to watch the gate, one to shadow the back garden. The rest he would keep for training. He breathed in, the night thick with leaf scent and distant voices, and he made himself a new vow. He would learn everything he could, not for vengeance, not only for vengeance, but so that if the darkness ever came again, it would have to fight through more than a boy with scars. It would have to fight through a family, a village, and the bonds he was building, link by stubborn link. Minato, from a distance, watched them with a fond expression, his arms crossed. I never get tired of seeing that, he murmured to himself. A mother passing her fire to her child. Once lunch was done, Minato stood and clapped his hands. Team Minato. Let's resume the sparring rotation. Rin stretched. Kakashi rolled his shoulders. Obito fired himself up with a dramatic pose. Kaito sat beside Kushina, watching with wide eyes as Minato sparred them one at a time. He moved with grace and precision, always fast, always calculated, and always holding back enough to avoid hurting them. Kakashi countered with smart angles and traps, Rin supported with medical chakra bursts, and Obito rushed in with explosive enthusiasm. Kushina's instincts ignited. Chains burst from her back, dragging her across the ground toward her children even as her body failed her. She threw her own body over Naruto and Kaito, shielding them with everything she had left. Not my children. The colossal claw descended. Minato saw it. He reacted without hesitation. He threw himself over all 3, Kushina, Naruto, and Kaito, taking the full brunt of the Ninetails' blow. Blood sprayed across the ground. Kushina hummed as she fed Naruto, watching Kaito with an expression that tried to be casual and failed, Her eyes betrayed the calculation of a mother always measuring risk. "You'll be careful?" she asked before he left. "Always," he lied, then corrected, more honestly, "mostly careful." She ruffled his hair and pressed a small sachet into his palm. "Salt for the wound of travel," she said with a wink, though Kaito knew it was more habit than necessity. He found Kakashi at the old training ground with a thermos and a scroll tucked under one arm. The Jonin's single visible eye crinkled when Kaito approached. "Early," Kakashi observed. "You said you'd help," Kaito replied, breathing a small laugh. "And you gave me these," he added, holding up Minato's Rasengan diagrams. Kakashi's eye flicked down to the paper. "Minato's handwriting," he murmured. He was particular about flow. "We'll start with form, then compression. I'll time you." They worked through the morning. Kakashi's corrections were surgical: pressure here, loosen the fingers there, and each adjustment felt like the whittling away of doubt until Kaito could feel a small, stubborn sphere of chakra humming at his palm like a captive moth. And then, with the faintest swirl of leaves, it vanished. Minato narrowed his eyes. Someone was observing us. Kaito's heart raced. Was it Danzo's route? An ANBU scout? A spy from another village? Or someone much darker? Kakashi stepped forward. "Sensei, should we pursue?" Minato shook his head. "No. Their chakra masked too quickly. For now, stay alert." Kushina held Kaito a little tighter than usual. But Kaito didn't tremble. Instead, a fire lit inside him. "If someone is watching us, it means I'm not the only one preparing for the future. And whatever storm was coming, Kaito Uzumaki would be ready for it. No matter what." Lunch with Kushina was always special. Even when we were perched high on a tree branch, swaying gently in the breeze, she managed to make it feel like home. A mother's warmth could turn any place into comfort, even a battlefield training ground. Below us, Team Minato was in the midst of their bell test. The same test my father had used countless times, but today felt different. Kakashi, now a newly minted Jonin, moved with a maturity far beyond his years. His Sharingan eye remained covered under the Hitayate for now, but even without it, his movements were sharp and unforgiving. Rin supported with flawless chakra usage, keeping Obito steady, boosting his stamina, and forming perfect teamwork triangles. Minato and Kushina, choosing to sacrifice themselves. Inside the barrier, Minato steadied his breath as he stepped back toward the towering, thrashing form of the Ninetails. Kushina's chakra chains dug into the creature's limbs, glowing violently as they held the beast down, even as her body trembled from the effort. Minato nodded once, quietly, his expression solemn. Behind him, the translucent figure of the Shinigami loomed, cold, ghastly, its skeletal face contorted in an eternal, silent scream. The deity's hand pierced straight through Minato's chest, ripping effortlessly through his Hokage vest, emerging from the front in a grotesque display of spiritual power. Its ghastly arm shot toward the Ninetails with terrifying speed. Danzo's words were dangerous kindness. "I don't want anything from you," Kaito said finally, flat and steady. "No." Danzo's smile was thin. "You reject help well. That makes you predictable, which is why I came to offer another chance. The village has needs, and you have talents. With proper guidance, you could join Root." Kaito interrupted. He didn't need to finish. The promise and the poison were the same. Danzo's expression hardened. "A boy with your gifts must choose carefully. Not all offers are traps. Some are paths." "My path protects my family, not sells them," Kaito said. He stepped forward, not threatening but resolute. "We don't need bargains that cost us what we are." Danzo's eyes narrowed. Her hands bound. Her legs tied. Her long dark hair falling over the Jonin's arm like a broken curtain. Shikaku snapped. "Put her down. Now." The Jonin didn't hesitate. He flickered back, landing on the branch of a towering pine tree, holding Hotaru before him like a hostage shield. "Don't interfere," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "I have no quarrel with you, stand aside. That's not happening, Kakashi said, lightning already crackling faintly along his fingertips. The jonin gritted his teeth, darting his gaze between the two konoha shinobi. That was when he sensed Kaito. He twisted sharply, eyes widening behind the cloth mask as he spotted Kaito stepping into the clearing. The moonlight caught the red hair. That night Kaito sat by Naruto's crib and read Minato's letter again. There was a phrase he had not noticed before, small and deliberate: teach him to laugh. That will be the shield no jutsu can pierce. He smiled despite everything. There were seals and Rasengan and Hiraishin to master, plans to lay and enemies to outthink, but Minato had left them a different kind of instruction, too. Protecting Naruto wasn't only about techniques, it was about keeping the small, stubborn light alive. Its eyes gleamed with murderous intent. Now! It roared, lifting its massive claw and slamming it down toward the tiny form of baby Naruto. Kaito's mind felt like it was floating in fog. His consciousness wavered in and out like a broken signal. The world around him was muffled. Someone shouting, someone coughing, something roaring. Then a chilling thought stabbed through the haze. Mom. Dad. Naruto. His eyes snapped open. Blurry shapes. Red light. The silhouette of the Ninetail's enormous claw descending toward the altar. And his parents, both of them, jumping in front of it. Time slowed to a crawl. No. Kaito lurched up, every nerve in his body screaming. What did you expect? Obito leaned in toward Kakashi. Is that good or bad? Kakashi sighed. It means he'll surpass you at this rate. What? Rin laughed softly. Kushina guided me to a clear patch in the training ground. All right, Kaito. Let's start with the basics. She produced an ink brush and unrolled a scroll with small, delicate symbols. These are chakra formulas. The backbone of all Fuinjutsu. My eyes widened. The symbols pulsed faintly with chakra even before touching them. They reminded me of complex circuits, elegant, ancient, powerful. Kushina dipped the brush and handed it to me. Try copying this one. She pointed at the simplest symbol, the basic chakra retention formula. I began slowly. The jonin barely had time to gasp before Kaito reappeared in front of him, foot slamming into his torso with enough force to snap the branch beneath them. The world flipped. The jonin flew backward, Hotaru slipping from his grasp. Got her. Kakashi blurred forward, catching her mid-fall. Shikaku's shadow snaked across the clearing, pinning the jonin to the ground before he could recover. The fight was over. But the killing intent radiating from Kaito was only getting stronger. He stepped toward the pinned Kumo shinobi, eyes darkening with something primal, furious, ancient. For the first time since this night began, Shikaku felt afraid. Kaito, he warned, voice low, stop. That's enough. But Kaito didn't stop. Not yet. Kaito grinned and launched in. 3 shadow clones, a whirling of kunai, a burst of wind that scattered Minazuki's hat off the low parapet, which Minazuki, to everyone's surprise, let fall and then caught without complaint. He ended with a seed of Rasengan the size of a marble, spinning in his palm. It was rough, not fully rounded, but it held. Minazuki watched quietly. Enough. He paced a slow half-circle. You can all do flashy things. The question is whether you can do them together and for the right reasons. Itachi's voice was low. What do you want from us, sensei? Simple. Minazuki turned and plucked a tattered training map from the crate behind him. There's a supply cart scheduled to move from the eastern gate to the merchant quarter. Bandits have been poking around. You'll escort the cart. Keep the supplies safe. No heroics. No solo stunts. Work as a unit. Hotaru blinked. Escort duty? It seemed tame. Kaito's chest tightened in a way he didn't expect, relief and a slash of disappointment. He'd wanted immediate danger, a chance to put Danzo or anyone with eyes for Naruto on the run. Obito tried, and failed, to hide the fact that he wanted Kakashi's attention. Minato basked in the familiar comfort of watching his precious students grow. And me? I watched Obito. Really watched him. The boy sitting on the ground, messy hair sticking up everywhere, dirt smudged on his cheeks, eyes full of dreams. That boy felt nothing like the masked man who would one day bring Konoha to its knees. How? How could this boy become that monster? He was whiny, emotional, reckless, kind-hearted, clumsy, but he had heart. So much heart that it overflowed out of him. Yet I knew his fate. I knew what would break him. And that knowledge burned like a kunai lodged in my chest. I have to change his fate. Not just for him. But for Minato. For Kushina. For Naruto. For myself. As the others ate and talked, I stepped aside, pretending to admire the scenery. In truth, I was deep in thought, trying to piece everything together. Obito is still years away from awakening Mangekyo. Rin is still alive. Kakashi has only just become Jonin. And Madara, somewhere out there, waits. The timeline was aligning. The Canopy Bridge mission was coming. Obito's death. Madara's manipulation. The beginning of the masked man. My stomach twisted. I heard footsteps behind me, soft and hesitant. Obito. Hey, he said awkwardly, scratching his cheek. You okay? I blinked, startled. I hadn't expected him. Why, yeah. The meeting dragged on deep into the night, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Though the clan heads nodded, accepting the reconstruction plan as necessary, every single one of them felt the shift, a quiet but undeniable fracture forming within the heart of the village. And at the center of that growing divide stood the Uchiha. Fugaku's jaw tightened, eyes darkening with a silent storm. He said nothing more, but every experienced ninja in the room could feel the quiet simmer of resentment filling the air around him. Hiruzen felt it too. They killed the actual guards. Silence fell. Hayashi's jaw tightened in a way that betrayed a fury even his calm demeanor couldn't mask. I see. Kakashi leapt down from his branch, checking the Jonin's injuries. Alive. Good. This will avoid war. Hayashi said nothing, but his eyes lingered on Hotaru, alive, breathing, safe, before flickering briefly, reluctantly, toward Kaito. "Oh Uzumaki," he said, his voice low. "You have my gratitude." Hotaru blinked at her father in surprise. Hayashi did not thank people easily, nor lightly. Kaito simply nodded, not expecting anything more. Shikaku knelt beside the Jonin's unconscious form, inspecting the chains. "We'll take him back. Carefully. This entire thing," he exhaled heavily, "is going to be a nightmare." Kakashi gave a helpless shrug. Better a nightmare than a war. Snow drifted softly through the forest, settling gently on Kaito's hair as he looked down at Hotaru again, brushing a leaf from her cheek with his thumb. "You're safe now," he murmured quietly, the adrenaline finally ebbing from his voice. Hotaru's eyes softened, her lashes lowering. "You came for me, even knowing the risk." Kaito's lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. "Of course I did." Hayashi cleared his throat loudly. Kaito nearly dropped her. Hotaru's face turned beet red. Shikaku fought a smirk. Kakashi looked suspiciously entertained. "It hides beneath the earth." Her hand slowly tightened at her side. "Kaito," she whispered, "you are being targeted." The words sent a shock through his entire body. "What do you mean? Targeted by who?" Hotaru shook her head. "I do not know. But this presence was not interested in your mother. Not your father. Not the baby." Her white eyes slowly met his. "It was watching you." Kaito's heart thundered. Zetsu wasn't just monitoring Kakashi. He wasn't just spying on Kushina. It was him. Kaito Uzumaki. A variable in the timeline. A deviation. Something Madara and Zetsu could not understand, or control. Hotaru stepped closer, voice low but unwavering. "I will help you. Whatever it is, you will not face it alone." For the first time in a long while, Kaito felt something besides dread. Hope. A new ally. Someone strong. Someone sharp. Someone fearless. He exhaled slowly. Thank you, Hotaru. She nodded once, and disappeared into the darkness as silently as she'd arrived. The moon glowed dimly overhead. The world grew still. And Kaito understood something with chilling clarity. The night of Naruto's birth was no longer just a danger to his parents. It was a danger to him, too. But this time, he would be ready. Kaito's sigh went unnoticed amidst the warm laughter that filled the room. Minato and Kushina were glowing with joy, and Jiraiya, despite trying to hide behind bravado, looked genuinely touched. For a boy so young, the pain he endured was unimaginable. The pain he would continue to face, even more so. And in a cradle beside Kaito's bedside, baby Naruto slept soundly, wrapped in warm blankets. His tiny chest rose and fell steadily, blissfully ignorant of the tragedy that had unfolded. The faint marking of the 8 trigrams seal glowed softly beneath his swaddling cloth, pulsing like a heartbeat. The nurse stepped closer, brushing Naruto's cheek with the back of her finger. You've lost so much, and you don't even know it yet, she whispered sadly. As she turned to leave, she paused, glancing between the 3 Uzumaki. Kushina, Kaito, Naruto. The pieces of a broken family trying to survive the aftermath of fate. A feast worthy of the great Toad Sage. Kushina shot him a glare sharp enough to slice through a boulder. 1 plate of food. No more. And no peeking while I cook, you know, she scolded. Jiraiya froze. Minato laughed behind his hand. Kaito smirked. Kushina's wrath was universal. Jiraiya leaned toward Minato. How do you survive living with a woman like that? Minato straightened up instantly and whispered back, because I enjoy living. Jiraiya snorted as Kaito choked on air. Once the meal was served, the energy in the room mellowed into something warm and familial. Even Jiraiya, self-proclaimed man of culture, ate quietly for a moment, savoring Kushina's cooking. Kaito, he said suddenly, chopsticks paused midair, I haven't had a chance to talk to you properly. Kaito glanced up warily. I heard, Jiraiya continued, that you're training hard. And that your chakra control is Uzumaki level frightening. Minato nodded proudly. His already learned smokeless shunshin. Jiraiya whistled. At 5? Damn. You're a prodigy. Kaito blinked, startled. Praise from Jiraiya felt strange. But, the Sannin added, leaning in, don't rush. Power that grows too fast can twist you. Seen it too many times. For a second, a fraction of a second, Kaito saw something in Jiraiya's eyes. Regret. Jiraiya swallowed. That's a big thing to ask, kid. Kaito didn't blink. Even bigger than writing a book. Or chasing girls. A vein popped on Kushina's forehead. Minato coughed violently to hide a laugh. Jiraiya sputtered. Hey, what do you know about? Enough, Kaito replied firmly. Enough to know Naruto deserves better. The silence that followed was heavier, deeper, important. Then, Jiraiya's smile faded, replaced by a small, tired one. You're right, he murmured. You're absolutely right. He looked down at the table, fingers tightening around his chopsticks. I failed Minato as a teacher. Failed Nagato. Failed Yahiko. Failed so many people. I don't want to fail anyone else. Minato's eyes softened with gratitude. Jiraiya exhaled shakily. I'll do better. For Naruto. And for you too. Kaito felt something loosen inside him. Maybe, this time, things could be different. Once Kushina went to rest, Minato, Jiraiya, and Kaito remained in the living room. Jiraiya's demeanor changed instantly, Sannin mode activated. He reached into his pouch and pulled out a scroll glowing with powerful chakra signatures. Kaito. His voice was grave. There's something you should know. Minato straightened. Sensei. Jiraiya's eyes narrowed. Someone has been sneaking around Konoha's borders. An unknown entity. My spy network caught glimpses but, The descriptions don't match any known shinobi. Kaito's heart dropped. And I'm proud of you. Kaito's throat tightened. But understand this, Minato's voice dropped, filled with a quiet strength only Hokage possessed. Your mother and I are not fragile. We are your parents. It is our job to protect you. Kaito's heart ached painfully. But Chu-san, I can help. I know. Minato smiled gently. And you will. But when the time comes, don't act alone. Promise me. Kaito hesitated. Why promise? Minato pulled him into a hug. We'll face whatever comes. Together. As Kaito lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, his mind churned. Jiraiya was back. Zetsu was watching. Naruto's birth was nearing. And the masked man, Obito, was getting closer. But this time, Naruto wouldn't be alone. Kushina wouldn't be helpless. Minato wouldn't be caught off guard. And Kaito Uzumaki was no longer the child destiny overlooked. He was the variable. The change. The storm the enemy never anticipated. He smiled faintly. Come then, Obito. This time, I'm waiting for you. Jiraiya's grin split his face like a cracked shell, half pride, half pure mischief. He leaned back, letting the afternoon sun wash over his broad shoulders as he watched the 5 shuriken disappear into the wood with a satisfying thunk. Not bad at all, he said, clapping once. You got it on the first try. Most genin stumble over the hand signs for weeks. Kaito wiped the sweat from his brow and let himself smile. It uses a lot of chakra, but I thought I could do it. You did, Jiraiya agreed. But don't make the mistake of thinking that more jutsu means more power. Technique without wisdom is a quick way to get yourself killed. Learn its limits. Learn how much you can expend and what you can sacrifice to pull something off. Kaito nodded earnestly. He'd heard similar lectures from Minato and Kushina, but coming from Jiraiya the words felt heavier, like a lesson with a story tucked inside. Hey, squirt, Jiraiya added, leaning forward and lowering his voice conspiratorially. You want the real trick? It isn't the clone making itself. Kakashi arrived without fanfare, sliding into the clearing like a shadow with a book. He looked at Kaito, at the white-tipped hair, the clenched fists, the set jaw, and for a moment the older shinobi allowed himself a quiet, approving nod. Ready? He asked. Kaito's answer was only a sharp, single nod. They started with the basics: chakra flow, breathing, visualization. Kakashi watched Kaito's hands as he tried to shape water-shaped chakra between his palms. At first the chakra simply felt wrong to Kaito, solid where it should be fluid, stubborn where it should bend. The paper exercise from yesterday had been one thing, turning chakra into water was another. Your Uzumaki blood helps you recover fast, but that doesn't mean damage doesn't matter. He cocked his head. You look like you've been doing more than normal. Kaito's face flushed. He'd meant to hide the extra training, the Knights of Seals and chakra drills he did while everyone slept. But he knew he couldn't fool Jiraiya's sensei instinct. Because I need to be stronger, Kaito finally admitted. For my family. There was no judgment in Jiraiya's expression now, only a steady, unvarnished acceptance. Then train smart. I'll help where I can. Teach you some ways to save chakra, ways to conserve for the big moment. But you're not doing anything reckless. Promise me that. I promise, Kaito said, and felt the promise settle like a stone into his chest, heavy, grounding. They walked back toward the village together. Jiraiya chatted lighter things, a ridiculous anecdote about toads, a bit of gossip from the Sannin network, but every now and then he slipped into something sharper, a technique tip, a tactical insight, a reminder to always check your blind spots. Minato's training philosophy bled through Jiraiya's tone too, speed and precision, but never at the expense of discipline. When they reached the Uzumaki house, the lanterns were lit and Kushina was waiting on the porch. The sight of her smiling face eased something in Kaito's chest that he couldn't quite name. It was the first time he'd felt his techniques actually obey him. Kakashi, as always, tempered his praise. Good. But remember, versatility means using water in ways people don't expect. Don't always make it visible. Learn to hide it. Learn to use it in tandem with your clones. That word, clone, made Kaito's heart race. Once they practiced the cage bunshin alongside the water conversion. Kakashi set a simple drill: produce 3 clones, each one to form a small water ribbon and wrap it around a target, then have the real Kaito move in and finish the technique with a single shuriken. The first attempt left 2 clones exhausted and the real Kaito puffing, panting, the shuriken falling harmlessly short. There was always another crisis coming, always something bigger waiting on the horizon. The Uchiha tension, Danzo's schemes, the 4th Shinobi War he could practically feel crawling closer in the timeline. But for a moment, just a moment, he let himself breathe. Naruto tugged at his sleeve. "Kaito, play." Kaito looked down, and despite everything, the missions, the killing, the politics, the weight of a future only he knew, he smiled. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'll play with you." Naruto squealed with joy and immediately ran in a circle, tripping over absolutely nothing. Kushina laughed. "I'll make dinner. Don't let him destroy the house." "No promises," Kaito sighed. And that wraps up today's episode of What If Naruto Had a Big Brother. Kaito's journey is only getting more intense, and the future of the ninja world is changing with every step he takes. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see what happens next, make sure to hit that like button, share the video with other Naruto fans, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Drop your theories in the comments. I love reading them. See you in the next episode.